This is a topic I touched on this weekend, Rob, on my open mic, but I knew this was big enough and important enough that we had to bring it over here and talk about it on the John Campea Show here today. We've been talking over the past couple of weeks about how the fact that the movie theater industry is hurting right now. The movie theater industry is hurting right now. There's no doubt about it. And the theaters, all of them, are getting the crap kicked out of them. The studios are getting the crap kicked out of them. Hell, a lot of people outside of the movie industry are, but we're here to talk about the movie industry. We talk about these big topics within the confines of how they affect this specific realm. And within this specific realm, the theaters are getting the absolute crap kicked out of them. And we heard, and we talked a little while ago, Rob, about the fact that AMC could be in a little bit of trouble. They could be in a little bit of trouble. Well, Friday, a report dropped that painted the picture as more than just a little bit of trouble. It actually paints a picture that it becomes doubtful that AMC Theatres will ever open their doors again. This is from S&P put out their S&P Global put out a report where they downgraded AMC's rating from a B- to a triple C, or basically doubtful that they're going to avoid basically collapsing. Some of the highlights from the report are this. This is from S&P. We do not believe AMC has sufficient sources of liquidity to cover its expected negative cash flow past midsummer, and we believe the company will likely breach its 6 times net senior secured leverage covenant when tested on September 30th, 2020, absent of a waiver from its lenders. Even after significantly lowering its fixed cost and capital spending requirements, because remember, they laid off all the staff, even the CEO has been furloughed, all that kind of stuff. We only expect the company's liquidity sources to last through midsummer and are revising our assessment of AMC's liquidity to weak. The company will likely pursue incremental financing through the CARES Act or its lenders, but it is unclear when or if it will be able to secure additional liquidity. Rob, the report also goes on to say that they expect AMC to breach and not open. Now, to put this a little bit more into context, my belief, Rob, what I said over the weekend on open mic was basically, I think at this point you have to believe it is a very real, what was just a couple of months ago would have seemed impossible, that it is now a very legitimate possibility AMC may never open its doors again. I believe they will, because I believe that the movie studios cannot allow the biggest movie theater chain in the world to go under, because it will kill them. So I believe at some point, Warner Brothers, Disney, Paramount, Universal, Lionsgate, A24, everybody is going to get together and say, we have to come up with a plan to keep AMC alive, because if they go under, we're dead. And to put things in perspective, Rob, I put up this tweet yesterday. A lot of people are still thinking, we'll just put their movies on Disney Plus and everything will be fine. To put it in context, if you take up the entire total year's worth of subscription revenue that Disney's going to make on Disney Plus this year, Aladdin and Captain Marvel by themselves made more money than Disney will make in an entire calendar year on its subscription revenue. And that's not even counting all the operating costs, marketing costs, production costs, all that. It's not even taking any of that in consideration. So if you take that out of both, you're seeing a situation where just 2 movies made more money in the theaters, a lot of it in AMC theaters, than Disney Plus is going to make an entire year worth of revenue. The studios need AMC to be alive. They need them to be alive. So while I think it is very, very possible here, Rob, that we could see AMC close its doors, I don't think it'll happen, because there's just too many other third parties that will suffer a domino effect that will hurt them badly if they close. I don't think the studios are going to come to AMC's rescue because out of the goodness of their heart. I think the studios may, if it needs to come to this, I think the studios will come to AMC's rescue because it's in their own self-interests and they need it to happen. But Rob, we've seen this deteriorating situation. You've seen this latest report, and I know that you read it. What do you make of this whole thing, and what do you think the outcome of this is going to be?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, think about it. It's not just the theaters and the studios. What about the candy companies that AMC buys candy from? Soda, the popcorn companies, the supply chains, the truck drivers that bring all this stuff all over the country to AMC theaters. I mean, They're like, and this is just a microcosm of countless other businesses across the world that are finding themselves in the same place. You hear of, I read about a landlord in New York City. He owned 15 buildings, John, and he went through and he just went through and posted no one has to pay rent for April. A guy owns 15 buildings. And that's a huge hit for his company, but he's just like, you know what? I mean, it's better off for me to take care of my tenants than to start eviction proceedings across my 15 buildings for people that aren't deadbeat tenants. And there's got to be, people are going to either have to step in, they're going to have to, like this article that you were talking about says, unless their debt is forgiven. This is just what's going to happen across the world, because if it doesn't, there's going to be many things that, it's like you said, it's going to be a domino effect. And the studios, like you also said, cannot allow this to happen because, look, they got to get movies back in theaters. And can you imagine if AMC is shuttered? Well, what? Who's going to step in and reopen them to put movies back in theaters? I mean, they need their employees, they need their infrastructure, they need their facilities. It's not like, look, Disney does a great job running theme parks, but they don't want to take over a whole theater chain to make sure that Black Widow and Eternals get to be in movie theaters. I mean,
by the way, they're not in a financial position to do it, even if they wanted to. They're not in a financial position to do it.
No. And I think, like with everything else, we're seeing something where it's got to be all hands on deck. And to fire up the economy, nobody wants the economy shuttered. But on the other hand, what really disturbs me is how people are starting to talk about, well, statistically, what's 100,000 people dying? I mean, come on. And it's crazy to me that we're suddenly hearing that kind of talk too, because, wow, once we devalue human life, we're in a world of hurt more so than any virus is going to put us in. But we really, I think that whether it's the studios, somebody is going to come in because, like you said, they can't allow this to happen.
Yeah, it's just in too many other people's best interest. Now, Rob, a lot of people have understandably been asking me, well, John, I mean, if AMC's the biggest theater chain in the world, how come they're on the brink of collapse, whereas these other chains that are smaller don't seem to be? First of all, the other chains are hurting. They're all hurting. Yeah. I mean, make no mistake about that. But the reason AMC is in the precarious situation that it's in is because it was a perfect storm of crap. It was the perfect storm they got caught in. See, for the last number of years, from the days that even I was still there, AMC has been in a years-long program of, number one, acquiring new theaters, which they did the last couple of years. They've acquired a bunch of new theaters. Number two, they have been upgrading a hell of a lot of their theaters to the leather recliner, plush seating, installing the prime theaters, all that kind of stuff. So another huge expenditure. And of course, getting AMC A-List up and running, which cost them millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars in losses for the first number of quarters because they knew that's what would happen. And Rob, just this last quarter, AMC A-List actually got into the black and started to make a profit. But all that expansion and infrastructure building and all this stuff that AMC has been investing in had brought them to this perfect point where they were at $5 billion in debt. AMC Theatres is in $5 billion of debt. Not million, billion. And they understood that, they knew that, and now is when it was going to start to turn around, and they were going to start to be able to reap the benefits of all that investment that they made. And that, Rob, was the moment. That was the moment that that the lockdown had to happen, and it left them with their pants down. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It left them with their pants down. And it left them being incredibly and particularly vulnerable and exposed. Whereas a lot of the other theaters are not in that sort of a position, and they're getting the crap kicked out of them too. So, yeah, this is a huge story, Rob, and this is going to have ramifications for the industry as a whole, and it's going to be really interesting to see if, number one, do debtors give, do they give forgiveness documents? Do we get other parties stepping in? Do we get new investors to step in and offer a bunch of financial cash to keep everything running? Do the studios need to step in? I just got to believe at some point, Rob, because of all the reasons you mentioned as well, I just got to believe at some point there's going to be enough people who would be negatively affected by an AMC theater shutting down that they will have to collectively come up with a plan to make sure they stay up and running, because Disney can't afford to buy them. Nobody wants to get into a nationwide theater ownership situation. It's just far too expensive. It's a razor thin margin of profit for anybody. Nobody wants to be in that business. So it's going to take something. Guys, the question we have here for you is, how do you think this whole thing's going to resolve? How do you think it even got to this situation? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys.